our musicians tonight, we'll start with them, Charlotte Taylor and Matt Stone. Charlotte.
How y'all doing?
Charlotte and I go way back.
We do.
When we started in Argenta about 15 years ago,
Right.
where Muggs is, not Muggs.
Yeah.
The wine place, Crush. Where Crush is, there was a little deli that was trying to make it there, and Charlotte was kind enough to help with the art scene, like many of us did early on. And Charlotte would sing her heart out every night at the deli, and so and if you hadn't seen this month's issue of Arkansas Times, Stephanie Smittle writes about the 10 most important women singers in Central Arkansas, and Charlotte's at the top. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Shaw. Thank you. Check 1, 2. Thank you. Any up there? There he is. Hey, thanks a lot, y'all. Here's one I wrote called Pretty Pretty. Matt Stone's going to help me play some lead. Can y'all see him back here? There he is. Sitting in the park, trying to make some change. Gotta buy some liquor to ease my pain. Listening to the music they got down on Bill. You can never say that it ain't for real. And when I walk by, you know, and I'm moving right along, this is what it say, just like the words to the song. He said, pretty, pretty. Keep on walking, pretty, pretty. Don't do no talking, pretty, pretty. Sure look pretty tonight. Sun is sinking down, that's when the people start to move. Listening to the music, they're dancing to the groove. Dressed in lace and satin, leather and miniskirt. All the boys are looking, girls are trying to flirt. Above all the sound, down on Beale Street tonight, you can still hear them say, so loud and so right, and say pretty, pretty. Keep on walking, pretty, pretty. Don't do no talking, pretty, pretty. Sure look pretty tonight. When the spirit moves, you don't care what you do. You hear all the words, those down-home blues. You find yourself a lover, treat him like a king. You know it won't last, but you still got that dream. That dream. Pretty, pretty. Keep on walking. Pretty, pretty. Don't do no talking. Pretty, pretty. Sure look pretty tonight. it up for Matt Stone. Right here behind the ladder. All right, here's one of my favorite songs by Bonnie Raitt, y'all. Y'all feeling all right? Yeah. Burned down a long time ago. Make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Just give me one thing that I can't hold on to. To believe in this living. just a hard way to go. Thanks, everybody.
Welcome to Potluck and Poison Ivy. The theme music is by Steve Davison, who was up here earlier. That's Steve did that for us, that little snippet. Well, are you ready for some storytelling? Let me tell you a story. No, I'm kidding. Our first storyteller tonight is Guy Choate, who earned an MFA in creative nonfiction writing at the University of New Orleans, and is the founder and the director of the Argenta Reading Series right here in the capital of the free world. Guy does his program, if you hadn't seen it, argentareadingseries.com. Guy's right down the street next to Capello. He does a phenomenal reader series that gets sold out every time. So I don't think they sell tickets, but it's well attended. But he's terrific, and we're thrilled that he's here, and his family is here. His mother, his grandmother, and his wife are here. So welcome all of you. And ladies and gentlemen, Guy Choate.
Hello. I feel like I'm supposed to ask y'all to be like more energetic, but I'm going to spare you that. I don't think so. Thanks so much to Potluck and Poison Ivy for having me. As John said, I run Argenta Reading Series, and recently we had Paula come and read at our event, and I'm thrilled now to be at her event. She was fantastic, and that was a great experience. And when she told me about this event, she said, the theme is life and death. Do you have anything that fits that? And this has been somewhat of a roller coaster of a year for me. My wife, Liz, and I welcomed our son, Gus, to the world in June, which, is a pretty extreme high. And, yes, please. And I've got lots to write about that. But also, my dad passed away this year in March. And, that was a low. And this was written during that low period. And it's something that I'm... It captures a time period that's, dear to me. So thanks so much for having me. This is called The Day We Buried My Father. On the day of my father's funeral, I wake up in a twin bed at his house. Liz is still asleep in the identical twin bed across the room. Dad and Penny bought these beds for Caroline and Kate, my nieces, but as usual, we make accommodations that negate the previous accommodations we've made for them. And so at 35 years old, my pregnant wife and I are sleeping in twin beds in a room cluttered by toys that piss me off for reasons I'm still trying to nail down. People tell me I'll get used to toys like that, but I honestly don't think so. And the way they tell me pisses me off. They say things like, just you wait. You'll see come June when that baby gets here. And they say it with this all-knowing grin on their faces, and I wonder if my child will hate me someday for hating when people say well-intentioned things. Because it feels wrong, but I don't want to stop hating people for that. I try to guess what time it is, but I have no frame of reference beyond that it is still dark outside. I don't sleep well when I need to be marking things off of my to-do list. Instead of sleeping, I recount the things on that list over and over, and I try to work out the steps I need to take to complete those tasks. What have I neglected in these days leading up to my father's death? I try to remember if it's the electric bill or the gas bill I haven't put on auto pay yet. I've been ignoring my work email completely. I think I scheduled a meeting with our wellness coordinator for this morning to look at my shoulder. I can't do much with my left arm, and it's been this way since September when I moved a bookshelf down a flight of stairs, and I have to get it fixed, they tell me. You're going to need that arm come June when you'll become a daddy. You'll see. as if a childless person is too mentally stunted to see the benefit of a functional arm. I know I need to get my shoulder fixed, but my dad is gone. I make a mental note to reschedule my wellness appointment, but that's as far as I get on my to-do list. I'm too distracted by what the day will bring. We are putting my father in the ground today, and I will never see his body again. I lie in that twin bed and consider my dad's life until I can't keep it all in my head at the same time, and I feel like if I can just write it down, I can come to terms with it. So I tiptoe out of the bedroom and walk in the dark to the dining room where the large table is covered with a smorgasbord of food the church ladies brought last night, and I have to move the dishes around a little to make room for my laptop. There's a tray of 9 homemade cinnamon rolls. I start to cut one from the edge, but the one cinnamon roll in the middle looks so soft. And it has no hard edges because the other 8 cinnamon rolls have protected it. I think about how my sister would cut the cinnamon roll from the center because it will undoubtedly be the gooeyest. She always does things like that. She will run her finger along the bottom of a chocolate cake tray to get extra chocolate, while I will insist on getting only the chocolate goo that is intended for my allotted piece. It pisses me off so much. I remind myself of how my sister strongly suggested Liz and I sleep on the twin beds instead of the room that was built for us with the queen size, and I decide I won't be able to handle seeing her get the middle cinnamon roll. And so I put it on a plate and stick it into the microwave for 15 seconds before sitting down to write about my dad. To really understand who my dad was, a reader will have to understand the stock he came from and the heritage he was so proud of. And so, in explaining my dad, I begin writing about his grandfather, whom Dad will soon be sharing a patch of ground with. Maybe I get too into the weeds, but after a couple of hours of writing, I'm still 90-some-odd years away from the part of the story where my dad is born. That's when Liz emerges from the darkness into the light of the dining room. She has this look she gives me during the early morning hours when she doesn't know how long I've been up and she finds me at my computer. It's a look that says she didn't like me not being there when she woke up. It's a look that says she didn't like me not being there when she woke up because she missed me while she was sleeping, even if we were in twin beds. That look is a reminder of how much she loves me, and I take comfort there on this day that has already been committed to both formal and informal sadnesses. Liz gets a cinnamon roll and laughs at the vacancy in the middle of the pan. "You didn't," she says. But I assure her I did. I am eating my grief, and it becomes clear to me that my grief warrants a second cinnamon roll. We heat them up and share a fork so there is one less utensil to wash later. The others wake up and trickle into the kitchen for coffee and to survey the breakfast options. Penny, her friend Anita, my sister's family. I sip my tea and watch my little nieces sitting at the bar eating cinnamon rolls that are the size of their faces. They're still in their pajamas, cotton gowns with Disney princesses on them. Kate, the 5-year-old, asks why my tea is in a coffee cup instead of a regular glass. "Because it's hot," I tell her. "That's not tea," she says. "Yes, it is. It's hot tea." "No, it's not, Gunkle." "I don't know what to tell you, Kate. It's hot tea." She's confused and embarrassed at the things she does not know yet because she is only 5, so she changes the subject. "Talk like St. Patrick's Day," she says. That's her way of saying she wants me to use an Irish accent, but my Irish accent is terrible and I don't want to do it in front of adults. When I tell her as much, she is unsatisfied. "Talk like Mommy," Caroline, the 9-year-old, says. "I can do that," I tell them. The girls look at me expectantly with their big little girl eyes, waiting for my impression of their mother. Caroline, listen to me for a second." Caroline thinks I'm talking to her in real time, rather than doing an impression, and she drops her head down to listen to what I'll say next. Chris, my brother-in-law, is listening, and he laughs. "That doesn't sound like Mommy," Kate says. Chris assures his daughters it does sound like Mommy. "Talk like Daddy," Kate says. I tell Chris to say something, and then I mimic the line as best I can, and the girls laugh. "Talk like Penny. Talk like Aunt Liz. Talk like Nene." I roll out my best impressions for my nieces, and it's fun, but I can feel the inevitable conclusion long before we get there. "Talk like Pawpaw," Kate says. I can't think of what my now-deceased father sounded like. For years, when I thought of him, I thought of how he would say, "Good grief," when something had completely exasperated his patience, quite often his son, or his beard. But the girls wouldn't know about that. Ever since that first brain hemorrhage 3.5 years ago, Dad had all the patience in the world as he endured one thing after the other. The stroke, and the physical therapy, and the occupational therapy, and all the rehabilitation, and the shitty food, and not being allowed to drive. The seizure while behind the wheel shortly after he got his license back. The wreck that it caused. The tumor on his brain that caused the seizure. The house fire in the middle of the night that nearly killed him because the medicine he had to take at the time made him sleep hard. The tumor that came back on his brain after they told him there was a 99% chance it wouldn't. The 4 tumors on his spine they stumbled across by chance, moments before they went in after the tumor on his brain. The sleepless days and nights in the hospital that Dad called the beepinest place he'd ever been in. He had times when he could barely breathe, yet he endured the goddamn hiccups as a side effect for 2 years. And of course, there were the treatments. And there was the deterioration of the man who let me steer on the dirt road just before we reached our house when I was 6. The man who told me to watch the ball and keep my elbow up. The man who took me bear hunting with a BB gun because he just wanted to go to a piece of land he loved and walk around there with me for a while. He just wanted to give me a life I would enjoy, and I hope I can do that as well for my son as he did for me. Kate was 2 when Dad got sick, and from that time on, so much of his communication was reduced to short but strained yeses or nos. Are you cold? Yes. Are you hungry? No. I try to think of an impression of her pawpaw that she will recognize, but I can only think of the last words he gave me. 3 days before he died, Dad lifted his head barely off the pillow, which required significant effort, so I knew he meant to tell me something important. I was alone with him, sitting at the side of his bed, and I leaned in so he wouldn't have to speak any louder than he had to. "What is it, Dad?" I whispered. He had no medicine that day, and so I knew he had his incomparable wit about him. I put my hand behind his head to help him lift it. He looked at me through what became his foggy gray eyes, and he said, "Just shoot me." And he looked at me with what I think was hope. "Dad, I can't do that," I said. "But maybe you can," he said. "It'll be over soon," I told him. A stranger might interpret Dad's asking me to end his life as weakness, but I assure you it was a testament to the dignity with which he lived. Long before he ever got sick, Dad said, "Son, if I am ever stuck in bed and unable to care for myself with no hope of recovery, just shoot me." And now he was living up to those courageous and selfless words he'd laid out for me then. My father was strong and dignified even in those final days, especially in those final days. He looked cold, and I saw his hand trying to pull the plaid blanket, but he was too weak to move it. I straightened it for him and tucked it around his body, up to his neck like he liked. I asked him if he remembered tucking me in when I was a little boy. He nodded slowly. I told him how I remember watching him tuck my sister into bed across the hall before coming to tuck me in, and how after he would tuck me in, I'd watch him go back into her bedroom and turn on the lamp so they could check her for ticks. She always claimed to have ticks as a way to get him back. And when he'd finally turn out her lamp for good, I'd fear what might be waiting for me in the dark. A possessed Teddy Ruxpin or an animal of some kind just outside my window, maybe. But I told him how I found security in the sound of the television coming through the wall behind my headboard. Because as long as I could hear that television, I knew my dad was awake on the other side of the wall and would ward off anything that might get me. And if they attacked, he would use his pickaxe to destroy them, just like he did that copperhead I almost stepped on in our driveway. And I'd be reassured by his strength and his ability to keep anything bad from ever happening to me. A tear fell down my dying father's cheek as I conveyed the memory to him. I wiped it with my hand, and I told him I loved him and that he was a good dad to have. I sat with him until he fell asleep, and I never saw him awake after that. I don't know how to do an impression of my father that the girls will recognize, and I am stalling until finally Caroline says with attitude, "Okay, moving on," the way 9-year-old girls do. And we stop the game, and I go to the bedroom with the twin beds and the toys that will hopefully stop pissing me off once that baby gets here. And I pull out the suit and tie I will wear on this day when we will bury my father. Thank you so much.
call it Stormy Monday, but my Tuesday's just as bad. They call it Stormy Monday, but you know my Tuesday's just as bad. Worse. My Thursdays oh so sad. The eagle flies on Friday. Saturday I go out to play. Saturday, I go out to play. Then when Sunday morning comes, I need to get down on my knees and pray. Flies on Friday. Saturday I go out to play. Lord, when the eagle flies on Friday, Saturday I go out to play. Looking everywhere for my sweet babe. Somebody please, somebody please, send my baby home to me. Send my baby home to me. Thank you.
Our next reader is Judge Vic Fleming. He's been a judge in Little Rock, Arkansas since 1997. He also teaches law and literature at the Bowen School of Law and writes everything from New York Times crossword puzzles to a humor column to 2 books of legal humor to award-winning songs. Put your hands together for Vic Fleming.
Oh, thanks, John. I want to thank John and Paula for inviting me to come out here. I especially want to thank them and all the other principals at Potluck at Poison Ivy for preserving the art of storytelling and for inviting me to tell a story that I've been telling for 35 years. Before I get started, so that I don't forget, and it's not going to work afterwards probably, I want to acknowledge a few little things. First of all, with my wife Susan and me tonight are Jay Clark and his wife Christina Clark, who both work and live in Little Rock. Jay is a peripheral character in the story that I'm going to tell. His father, Cotton Clark, is a main character, and Susan, my wife's uncle, is a main character in the story, although he's not the absolute main one of two main characters, really, I guess you would say. And he is one of those family members that was always larger than life and was always never a finer gentleman than he. And I will introduce him in the story, but I want you to understand that he had a comical way about him, and don't misinterpret anything that you think, boy, that's crude. It's really not crude. It was comical. So, here we go with the story that has no title, but it does fit the theme. As I enter the hospital, I hear a child's voice. "Mommy, why is that man not wearing any shoes?" Saturday morning, early autumn, 1982, sunny and mild. Gas is 90 cents a gallon, bread is 50 cents a loaf, and 10 buddies are meeting for a day of golf at Rolling Hills Country Club in Cabot, Arkansas, also known as Cabot. Golf to be followed by a cookout, which will include the spouses. The golfers all live and work in Central Arkansas. Cotton Clark, Bill Collins, Don Gray, Will Holland, and Tom Nichols are all co-workers at Chrysler Credit Corporation. They are friends of my uncle-in-law, J.H. Juki Burnside, Executive Director of the Arkansas Motor Vehicle Commission, and the undisputed leader of this golf group. The other golfers are Benny Scroggins, a banker whose home in Cabot is the cookout site, car dealers Sam Ross and Vic Wright, and a 30-year-old attorney whose name also was Vic. Now, Uncle Juki and I've known and played golf with for years. The rest of these guys, only a few months. I am the newbie, and as the youngest member of the group and the only lawyer, I am the brunt of all kinds of jokes. And this crowd loves jokes. Sam Ross, the car dealer, has a new one every week. One in particular comes to mind. Fella gets home really late from his weekly golf outing one Saturday afternoon. His wife demands an explanation. Well, he says on the 9th hole, Charlie made this great putt, and then he had a heart attack and died right there on the green. "Oh, my God, that's horrible," the wife says. "Yeah, the back nine took forever. It was hit the ball, drag Charlie. Hit the ball, drag Charlie." So I'm a couple of years out of law school when Uncle Juki invites me into this golf group. They play every Saturday, usually at Long Hills and Benton, but once a year they play in Cabot and have a barbecue after. This is my first time for the barbecue. The format is a 27-hole tournament with a picnic lunch after the first 18 holes. Juki has it all planned out with lots of rules, details, and prizes. To keep from having too many cars at the cookout later, several of us meet at 7:30 in the morning at a church parking lot on the interstate. We throw all the golf gear into Tom Nichols' pickup truck, along with ice chests containing beer and soft drinks and sandwiches for lunch. And then we drive to Cabot in 2 cars plus Tom's truck. The women will similarly carpool later in the day. So we get to golfing. I'm in a threesome with Juki and Tom. They're in a cart and I'm walking. In front of us are Cotton, Don, and Will. We come to hole number 6, a short par 3. The guys in front of us are done with the hole. In fact, Don and Will have moved over to 7T, but Cotton is lying on the ground under a tree near number 6 green, a full 30 yards away from his partners who have known him and worked with him for years. Now, I barely know this guy, Cotton Clark. I know that he's in his late 40s. He's married to a woman named Elizabeth who works for a savings and loan. Remember savings and loans? And they have 2 college-age kids. Cotton looks to me from 150 yards away like he's writhing in pain. Either that or he's making a clumsy effort to scratch a really hard-to-get-to spot in the middle of his back. Now, as Juki and Tom are moving over to number 6 tee, I unexpectedly to them hop in their golf cart and drive the 150 yards to where Cotton is rolling around on the ground. I hear Juki's voice behind me. "Where is he going? Vic? Vic!" Well, I drive up to Cotton. He is sweating profusely. "Are you okay?" I say. "Oh, I'll be all right," he says. "Mexican food last night. Indigestion. Really bad right here in the chest. But it's like it's spreading to my shoulders." Well, Juki and Tom have followed me on foot. "What the heck are you doing?" Juki says. "What I'm doing is I'm unstrapping his and Tom's golf bags from the golf cart and throwing them to the ground." I turn to Tom and I say, "Tom, give me the keys to your truck and y'all help me get Cotton into this cart. He's having a heart attack." "Oh, no, Cotton says. I'll be all right." Well, I said, "Well, you can be all right at the nearest hospital." Tom speaks up very professional and businesslike. He said, I really think he's fine." Don and Will see what's going on from the tee, and they say, "Hey, it's just indigestion. He told us." And then Juki speaks up and says, "Ain't it just like a lawyer to overreact?" And I said, "Well, maybe so, but I'm going to have to hear that from a doctor." Now, the next few minutes are a total blur in my memory. I drive to the pro shop 900 miles away. Actually, I'm sorry, it's 900 yards away. It seemed like 900 miles. And I run inside the pro shop, and who knows what I say. I don't remember. But a couple minutes later, I'm shoving Cotton into Tom's pickup, opening an oxygen kit that someone has given me, and fumbling with written directions to the Jacksonville hospital. This is way before GPS and Siri. Driving as fast as I safely can, I look over at Cotton. He is holding the oxygen mask in his left hand over his face, and with his right arm, he is leaning out the window on the right side, directing traffic. Apparently, he is now in favor of this trip to the hospital. The drive takes about 20 minutes. The pro from the golf course has called the hospital, so when I pull up, there are folks there to take charge of the patient. Suddenly I realize my street shoes are in Bill Collins' car back at the golf course, and I am wearing the golf shoes of the day, metal spikes. I quickly kick them off my feet, and as I enter the hospital, I hear a child's voice. "Mommy, why is that man not wearing any shoes?" Well, I slide up to the counter where someone in charge is sitting, and I introduce myself and explain the situation and say I need to make a few phone calls. She is very polite and businesslike. She gets up and she unplugs a telephone from an office nearby, takes me to a corner of the waiting room where there is a phone plug in the wall. This was state-of-the-art technology. In the early 80s, 5 or 6 years before the first cell phone even emerged, and actually 3 or 4 years before answering machines. As I sit there with that big phone on my lap, an inner voice kicks in. What if I'm wrong? What if a doctor walks up right now and says, "Your friend has a really bad case of indigestion"? At that moment, a doctor walked up and said, "Your friend did, in fact, have a heart attack. Good job on getting him here. He's going to be okay." Well, I thank him for the information, and I set about getting in touch with Elizabeth Clark. Now, 35 years ago, it was not uncommon when you were making a phone call to get either a busy signal or, do you remember what we called it? No answer. No answer. And that's what I got when I called the Clark residence. No answer. So not getting any answer, I did what any red-blooded American man would do at that time. I called my wife. Susan, where would Liz Clark be at 10:30 on a Saturday morning? Susan calls Juki's wife, Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah calls Bill Collins' wife, Jean. Susan then calls me back. No one knows exactly where Liz Clark might be right now, but she's never gone for long on a Saturday. Just keep calling. Well, I called the pro shop and thanked the golf pro for his help and asked him to get word to the golf group about Cotton. And finally, about the 10th time that I call the Clark residence, I hear the voice of Liz Clark say, "Hello." 30 minutes later, Liz and I meet in person, face-to-face, in the waiting room of the Jacksonville Hospital. She, of course, immediately has to begin talking to doctors and nurses and filling out forms. And so she's in doing paperwork and consulting with the doctors for about an hour, and then she comes and finds me in the waiting room where I'm still sitting there with that big phone on my lap. Liz then sets about getting in touch with folks. Her kids, Jay and Kathy, are college age. One had been a student in Fayetteville, one was a student in Conway. Each of them, it seems, this weekend is spending the weekend with friends who live in other cities. And it takes her a while to track them down. She also calls her priest. She calls a few other friends and a few other family members. Between calls, she talks to me. She's cool, she's calm, she's businesslike. She wants to know how Cotton looked on the golf course. What he said, how he felt, every detail. She also asks about my family and my work. She thanks me repeatedly for bringing her husband to the hospital. I do not tell her that it was over several objections, including his own. When the priest finally arrives, Liz looks at her watch and says, "Goodness, you've been here for hours. We've got this. You go on back to the golf course." So I drive back to the golf course in my sock feet, put my shoes on, find the group. Juki greets me. "Well, you two guys being gone messed up the whole damn tournament." I said, "Didn't the pro give you my message?" "Well, yeah, he told us Cotton had a heart attack and was going to be okay. We would have come to the hospital, but we knew you had us covered. Besides, Cotton would have wanted us to keep playing." I said, "You're talking about him like he's dead." Juki then says, "Oh, another thing." And I said, "Yeah?" He said, "You know, you could have had the courtesy to take those ice chests off of the pickup and leave them at the pro shop. We didn't even get to have lunch." Just over 20 years later, I would have my very own heart attack, alone in my backyard on a sunny spring afternoon, and I couldn't lie down under a tree and wait for a friend or a stranger to drive up in a golf cart. So I get myself into my house as best I can and as fast I can, lie down on the kitchen floor and holler, "I'm having a heart attack." Susan, blood kin to Juki, comes into the kitchen, takes one look at me, and she says, "You are not having a heart attack." Well, at least she didn't say, "Ain't it just like a lawyer to overreact?" My son Ted, though, 18 at the time, comes in and says, "Want me to call 911? I said, "Yes, please." And an hour later, I was having stents installed. I had seen Cotton Clark and several other members of this old golf group just a few weeks before this heart attack situation of my own at a memorial service for Bill Collins, the oldest member of the golf group. I had reminisced with Cotton and Liz about the 1982 experience, so lessons that I learned from it were on my mind when my time came for my own heart attack. Sadly, Cotton Clark died earlier this year in May in Mountain Home, where he and Liz had spent their retirement. By a stroke of luck, I was in Mountain Home in March and was able to visit with Cotton and Liz at the time for a while in downtown Mountain Home. And as we had done many times before, we reminisced about that Saturday in the fall of 1982 when a 30-year-old upstart lawyer had the audacity to overrule the objections of 5 older men on a golf course, refusing to let them hit the ball and drag Cotton. Thank you.
You know, having a lawyer reminds me of my brother Bruce, who's a lawyer in New Orleans. And Bruce calls me the other night, and he says, you're not going to believe what happened. Bruce has one of these big Cadillac kind of cars. And And he says, so, I stop at a red light, and I look to the right, and there's this homeless-looking guy, and Bruce calls him outdoorsman. and he's eating grass, and Bruce says, Bruce says, so what, he says, well, I can't afford food, and Bruce says, get in my car, let's, and so he says, well, my wife and kids are over there, and Bruce looks, and they're under the oak tree, and and they're eating grass. Bruce says, get them all over here, so get them in the car. I'll take them to the house. So they all pile in the car, and the guy says to my brother Bruce, the lawyer, he says, thank you so much. This is really a big deal to us. He said, it's no problem. You're going to love my house. The grass is a foot tall there. So anyway, it's just lawyers, Our final reader tonight is Bill Scott. He's a native of Arkansas. He's not now, nor has he ever been, presidential. He tries to think before he speaks, but that doesn't always happen. Cut him some slack, and he'll do the same for you. Let's hear it for Bill Scott.
Hi. I'm that crazy cat lady, but with dogs, and not very ladylike. I don't smoke or collect porcelain figurines, but if cats were self-reliant like dogs, I'd have a house full. But if dogs were self-reliant like cats, I'd have a house full, sorry. But if dogs were like cats, I wouldn't have any. Sorry, cat people. Dogs need you. Cats tolerate you. Maybe. Kind of. Not really. But it didn't start with a dog. It started with a gateway pet. Christmas morning, early 1970s, we got hamsters. 4 kids, 4 hamsters. Actually, my brother may have gotten a gerbil, which is a fancy rat. Anyway, I didn't ask for a hamster. I didn't know what a hamster was. But it was the one thing that had been missing from my life. Screw my siblings. I didn't need them. I had a captive audience, a friend in a cage. Brilliant. My sister named hers Grover. Grover was a great name. Bill, Mother asked, what are you going to name yours? Grover. My sister's eyes bulge when she screams, you can't name him Grover. Grover and I didn't care for her tone. I squeezed him tight and exited. He sensed danger was near and struggled against my grip. I pressed him close, hugged him tighter to let him know he was safe. Away from prying eyes, we finally had a chance to play, but Grover was still. I'm running cold water over Grover in the bathroom when my sister walks in. I can't wake up Grover. His name's not Grover. I'd love the life out of him. The life and some curdy, gray-white substance that was coming from both his mouth and anus. Side note to 5-year-old self, at 17, drop out of high school, start indie punk band, name it Grover's Anus. Not to be insensitive, but I'd been screwed out of a Christmas present. It didn't even last a day. I guess that's my fault, maybe, kind of. I mean, not really. Anyway, I definitely need another hamster, but Mother says there won't be another hamster. She thought I was old enough that I'd matured since the kittens, but obviously she'd been wrong. Really? The kitty incident of 73? Completely unfair. That had been ages ago. 2 unattended children on tricycles near a busy street, and 2 kittens who were yearning, or so we thought, to go on a tricycle ride. I'm sorry if a tail looks like a handle to a 4-year-old boy, and speeding down a hill on a giant tricycle is fun. We thought they'd like it. They did. Maybe. Kind of. Not really. 2 years after the kittens were rehomed and the summer PHC, post-hamster Christmas, we get a large, black, long-haired, lassie-looking dog, Smokey. Way too big to squeeze to death, and there was no chance of keeping him on a tricycle. We were in the backyard, the whole family and Smokey, barbecuing on the 4th of July. Smokey easily outweighed me by 20-plus pounds and, when standing on his hind legs, was surprisingly tall. Smokey decided to mount me from behind. His chin sat on the top of my head, and his weight pushed me into an uncontrollable run down the hill in our backyard. Suddenly, I knew how the cats felt, being taken for a downhill ride. I did not enjoy it, but Father was even less thrilled. Much less. He chased us around the yard, screaming and beating at Smokey. Smokey finally released me, but Father continued to spank him. I'd already lost multiple pets, not this time. "It's okay, Daddy," I lied. "I like it. It's fun." This infuriated Father. "Oh," he said, "you like that, do you?" Which is a direct quote. "Oh, you like that, do you?" I didn't understand what he meant because I didn't understand Smokey was trying to make me his bitch. It seemed more like the samba. It was a holiday and we were dancing. He led and I had no choice but to follow. Smokey was soon gone. Father said he'd packed up his things in the middle of the night and ran off to San Francisco. I was on my own again. I'm an adult now. Kind of. A good pet owner. Forget the childhood horrors. Yes, I killed a hamster on Christmas morning. But I've had some great dogs. Ellen, the Doberman, brilliant, obedient, loving. Grace, the Weimaraner. A Weimaraner? No, she was a sweet, good dog and a little crazy. I decided my next dog would be from a rescue. So when asked the dog's age, I could give the answer I was sick of hearing. How old is she? I don't know. She's a rescue. She could be like 4 or 12. I rescued her. Saved her little doggy life. Rescued what? From a burning building? Did some cats have her tied to the railroad tracks? The first dog I tried to adopt was literally in my lap. Literally, that's the correct usage of that word. The dog was in my lap. Literally as opposed to figuratively. Anyway, it seemed like a done deal. My friend was fostering her and her 4 bastard siblings until they could be transported to Delaware. I planned on naming her Monkey. 5 abandoned puppies living under a trailer in a state of near starvation. Their owner imprisoned for cooking meth. Their mother gunned down while chasing the neighbor's cattle. It would be our rescue story, a real rescue. Only for 3 days, the rescue wouldn't return the foster's emails or phone calls. Once the pups were en route to Delaware, the rescue finally emailed back. She didn't have time to vet me, process my application, blah, blah. So, Doggy Orphan Annie spent 3 days in a cross-country dog convoy in hopes she'd get adopted. I get it. I'm seedy. A hamster killer. You don't trust me with dogs that a few weeks ago were living under an abandoned trailer. Turns out they just wanted the dogs out of Arkansas. Like Delaware's so great. The next rescue never replied to my emails. Maybe I asked too many questions. Legit questions. Is she being fostered inside? How is she with other dogs? She looks like she might like whiskey, but one of us will have to drive when we go out, so I'm hoping she doesn't drink. Does she? The next 3 said no because I'd never owned a Great Dane. I even told one rescue I'd drive the 800 miles to Arizona that weekend to pick up the dog. Nope. Sorry, hamster killer. Not falling for it. Message received. You've never owned a Great Dane, so you can never adopt one. So, I paid the evil dog breeders for Henry and donated to Rocky Ridge Rescue. Henrietta, seriously beautiful. People pull over in their cars when Henry and I are walking to compliment her and ask a stupid question or two. Is she gonna be a Great Dane? Like, yeah. I mean, she's an okay Dane now, but fingers crossed. One day, she'll be great. How big is she gonna get? I don't know. I mean, how big are you gonna get? I take Henry everywhere. We are inseparable. 2 days shy of her 4-month birthday, I Instagram a pic of her wearing my sunglasses. Future so bright, I type, unaware of the irony. 30 minutes later, we pull into the parking deck, and she makes no effort to get out of the back seat. Come on, Henry. What are you, dead? Worst off-the-cuff comment ever. Seconds later, I've got Henry on the parking deck, blowing into her nose and doing chest compressions. My friend is sweetly but misguidedly calling 911. My neighbor pulls up. Is everything okay? No. We pull into the back of her SUV and head to the emergency vet. I am wailing like a ghost from Scooby-Doo. Completely embarrassing, but I can't stop. I continue to blow into Henry's nose, but she's gone. Heart defect, the vet guesses. For weeks, I browse puppies on the internet because I am whiskey-soaked and I need to cry, but I am not getting another dog. Then I see her. She has a black eye and a mustache. Very butch. She was born on the day Henry died, and I can't not. Just like with Henry, I tell people what I'm naming her. They furrow their brows, shake their heads, and suggest alternatives. What about Maggie? Maggie? That's how I know I've got it right. Big girl, gonna need a big girl name. Edna. No accidents, no separation anxiety. She hangs out at the local microbrewery. Ed's a dream, doing great. Me, I just try to make every day a good day for Edna. But when we lay in bed, I rest my hand on her chest to check her breathing. We're on the couch watching TV, and my foot nudges her ever so often to make sure she pushes back. I call out while she's sleeping, Ed, just to see her move. There have been too many ends without middles. I'm looking forward to the middle. There will be end for both of us, but it will not be now, not this time. Sweet Ed was 1 year old and 100 pounds when I wrote this story. Excuse me. December 27, 2016. Ed's 20 months old. Couldn't be any smarter or any sweeter. I come home and she's not standing on the couch, big ass whacking, waiting to greet me. She's lying tongue out on the floor in her own mess. She's still warm. If I'd come home 20 minutes earlier, maybe I could have saved her. Been there for her, known what happened. I'm really grateful for the sliver of a middle we had. And it's okay. I'll be fine. Maybe. Kind of. Not really. Thanks.
Bill Scott. Clarky, go check on Sophie. I think you forgot to take her out tonight. Thank you to our readers tonight. Guy Choate. Guy, thank you so much, and your family being here. Our storytellers, Vic Fleming and Vic's family's here. Thank you so much. What a way to end the night with Bill Scott and the story of his family. It's just amazing. And I want to thank our sponsors, certainly Tyler Thompson, Dr. Tyler Thompson, TRG Foundation, my firm, North Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau, The Joint, if you don't come to the other days, you need to come, Argenta Arts Foundation, Finger Food, Akanza, and our other sponsors are Judge Barry and Jean Hyde right here, and Dr. Tracy Wyndham and Dr. Gladwin Cannell, Charlie Penix and Richard Estelita, Greg Nabholz. And the strategy worked. When Vic walked off, he says, I want 4-season tickets. I was like, go to the website. And Charlotte and Matt will finish off the evening. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
that same old place, my sweet home, Chicago. Come on. Don't you want a girl like me? Come on. Don't you want a girl like me? I love you all the way home, sweet home, Chicago. Now 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 make 8. Come on, baby, don't you make me wait. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same California, my sweet home, Chicago. Come on, little baby, don't you wanna go? Yes, come on, little baby, don't you wanna go back to that same California, the sweet home in Chicago? Now 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 make 8. Come on, baby, don't you make me wait. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place, your sweet home in Chicago? Kick it one time. Howdy, hey, baby, baby, don't you wanna go? Howdy, hey, baby, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place, my sweet home in Chicago?
Woo! Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Matt. Merry Christmas, everyone. Come back to Potluck and Poison Ivy next year, acoustic music series. Dino Hardcastle. December 30th, you're all invited. We're honoring Donna at this place. It's a drop by, so come back and say thank you, Donna, for everything you've done. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming out and hear live music and entertainment. Thank you so much.